Okay, guys, this is Anto Lecky.
My name is Leo Bliss.
My name is Akava. I go by the name Baba D.
And you're tuned into Rapid TV. And I love Rapid TV.
Shout out
Rapid TV. Thank you, Rapid TV. Please keep watching
Rapid TV. This is Rapid TV.
Rapid TV.
Keep watching.
Keep it down.
Like that.
Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Rapid TV's continuously evolving social, political and general interest show, Korero. Of course, I'm your regular host, Nkamiang John the Beloved, also known as the Controversial. I know followers of the show, loyalists to the channel will be expecting, okay, Korero this morning is going to be on fire, especially considering the fact that since Thursday last week, up till yesterday, our searchlight had remained beamed on developments in Rivers State as we continue to watch the political chessboard. Of course, the dynamics change yesterday evening when the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Commander-in-Chief, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, declared a state of emergency in Rivers State and suspending the democratic structure in that state and now imposing an administrator. Of course, several questions have been asked, but this morning we will not discuss Rivers State. We will. Why? It's because our searchlight is still beamed on Rivers State, but this time it's wider with the development that took place yesterday evening. There is need to understand the dynamics at play and be able to watch all the players, as it were. Remember, it's a political chess game. Now, a major move was made yesterday with the declaration of a state of emergency. How does that pan out? Of course, the arguments are already on the board and various reactions have continued to trail that action. Maybe tomorrow, just maybe tomorrow, we may be able to piece the puzzle together and begin to give you the big picture. But this morning, we will be looking at a different sector completely, as we will be discussing changing the Nigerian innovation landscape. And this is one conversation I have always looked forward to. Anybody who's known me over the years will know that beyond my curiosity when it comes to the law and everything that has to do with the law, another thing that catches my attention is technology, innovation, and of course the tech space. So this morning it promises to be quite an interesting conversation, particularly because the Nigerian ecosystem in recent times has witnessed some change for the better under the current administration, which made it very clear right from the onset that his presidency, talking about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, understood that education is the real catalyst for national development. Now, almost 2 years after, the progress made in the educational sector, which has also rubbed off on the tech ecosystem, has been quite tremendous, with commitment to quality and, of course, access to constant technological innovation. Now, a number of initiatives have been put in place by this administration to encourage the both the educational and tech ecosystem to not just coexist, but be able to rub off on each other, and to ensure that every eligible child, teenager, and a young Nigerian gets quality higher education in Nigeria, no matter the circumstance of their birth. Of course, I didn't witness on social media where a friend did put out, he said, as a human being, you shouldn't be struggling with getting quality education and at the same time struggling with being able to finance getting that education. Well, on today's edition of the program, we will be discussing the changing Nigerian innovative land space. The show is live and interactive. We are streaming live on our website, www.rbnradiotv.com. And of course, as usual, my advocacy is that you become part of our growing online community simply by following and liking Rapid TV on all our social media platforms. Don't forget, our handle is @official Rapid TV, @official Rapid TV. And if you choose, you can also engage us via our WhatsApp portal. The number to call is on your screen, 0916-771-6035. You can take advantage of our WhatsApp portal, 0916-771-6035, to send your contributions, reactions, and of course even questions to be part of it. That's why we are live and interactive. Now, globally, countries are fast developing talents and skills for today and of course the future. Realizing this objective, innovation hubs are critical and remain a major pillar in driving this development. Lately, Nigeria has also positioned itself as a critical player in the age of innovation and technological advancement, as young and dynamic entrepreneurs have emerged in the tech space, providing solutions to economic challenges. Today, we have brands that include Flutterway, InterSwitch, Paystack, MoneyPoint, are all products of innovation hubs. And of course, they are growing largely as far as Nigeria and across Africa. In fact, recently I came across an article that suggested that Nigeria is seriously rubbing shoulders with countries like Rwanda and even South Africa when it comes to technological innovation in sub-Saharan Africa. Well, several innovative solutions are emerging from innovative hubs nationwide, from Abuja, the nation's capital, to Lagos, the commercial capital of West Africa, to Port Harcourt. Yes, Port Harcourt, which so it's not all negative news about River State, right? And of course, lately in Kwara State. Now, the federal and some state governments are also exploring the development of innovation hubs as incubators and catalysts of technological advancement. Joining me this morning to discuss the changing the innovation landscape, especially in Nigeria, and of course other related matters, is a professor of agricultural engineering of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, where he worked for many years, but he is currently the president, Soil Tillage Awareness Initiative, Nigeria chapter of the International Soil Tillage Research Organization. He's a member, board of directors, African Technology Policy Study, ATPS Network, Nairobi, Kenya. A fellow of a number of scientific and professional bodies, including the Nigerian Academy of Science, Nigerian Academy of Engineering, Nigerian Institute of Management, Nigerian Society of Engineers, Material Science and Technology Society of Nigeria, and the Nigerian Institute of Agricultural Engineers. He is none other than Professor Azikiwe Peter Onualu, FAS. Professor, it's great to have you join us this morning. When I grow up, I want to be like you.
Thank you, John.
It's great having you on the show this morning, and I've been looking forward to this conversation. But let's start with before the show started. I was telling you that I had been doing some background checks on you, and one of the interviews you granted not too long ago, sometime last year, you were and you harped on the need for more innovation hubs, both in Nigeria and across Africa. And I wonder if in your words, you said if the continent is to compete favorably with other technological advanced nations across the world, there's need to deliberately focus on increasing the number of innovation hubs across Nigeria and Africa. So let's take that position and use it or just oppose it with a critical look at this current administration, the Tinubu-led administration and APC government, in terms of its approach and policies for both. You can't talk technology and not talk education. You can't talk technology and not talk of innovation. Yeah, so being a stakeholder in both the educational, agricultural, innovative sectors, has the Tinubu-led administration, with its current approach and policies, have they really made any inroads in terms of innovation, in terms of both in the academy, in the academia, because recently some Nigerians will be saying, but he has just licensed a number of universities. The federal government has taken over some either privately or state-owned institutions. Is that the direction you are looking at when you're talking about improving and expanding innovative hubs across the country?
Yes, thank you, John. You agree with me that we can give it to the present administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. At the time he was campaigning, and even after he won the election, I took time personally to look at to read through his manifesto, which is, we all know, is the Renewed Hope Agenda. I think sometimes we, as Nigerians, we are only more interested in those dancing that go on the stage.
On the stage.
When they're campaigning. I took time to read the Renewed Hope Agenda, and actually, that document is well crafted. And if you read that document, you will see that there is a section devoted to innovation, trying to drive all sectors of the economy using innovation. And when he started, you could see a number of steps taken in implementing what is in that document, even though it has not been implemented fully. But I can give you one or two examples. You will notice the word innovation,
yes,
has found itself in at least 3 federal government ministries. The Ministry of Science and Technology, hitherto known as Ministry of Science and Technology, now has innovation put as the word first. It now answers Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology. This word innovation also found itself in the Ministry of Communications, the hitherto Ministry of Communications. It's now Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy. There is also innovation there. You will also find it in a number of other agencies and ministries of government. So give it to him. The foundation has been laid. And then following on that, if you look deeply, you'll also see that, in fact, in Vice President's office, apart from what is going on in Ministry of Innovation, Science and Technology, what is going on in Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, what is going on in other ministries, MDA, some of the new ministries that have been established. Under the Vice President's office, you also have a number of initiatives going on, all in the area of innovation. I know that there are programs there, or initiatives there that are driving projects and initiatives in the innovation ecosystem. And not only that, they're also encouraging all the state governments. And you can see it's actually paying off, because a number of state governors have even appointed special advisors on innovation or creative economy or innovation or everything concerning innovation in that. So I would say that this has happened. And then coming back to the education sector.
Yes.
The Federal Ministry of Education, as you can see, even though that ministry, in my opinion, has been undergoing, you can see that we've had 2-3 changes, I think 2, in the leadership, which is okay. But again, sometimes these things also tell on the ministry. But you can see that the drive in the ministry is shifting from the classics. You know, what we inherited from our colonial masters is education using the classics approach, where people are just studying, you know, acquiring knowledge. But you can see that the Ministry of Education, Federal Ministry of Education, is driving skills. And of course, when we talk about innovation, we mean skills. It's only skills that can make things change. And innovation is about changing the way we do things. So under that ministry, you see that there is a lot of initiative in the area of skills in education. I know that all universities in Nigeria have been directed through NUC, Federal Ministry of Education, to prioritize skills in education, entrepreneurship skills, innovation skills. And in fact, you can even begin to see that it's paying off. A number of innovation hubs driven by the private sector are springing up all over the urban centers in Nigeria. But in addition to that, you begin to see that even some universities are now establishing university-based innovation hubs, so that students are not to wait until they graduate to begin to acquire skills. They now have, within the confines of their university, an innovation hub, which means as they're taking all their lectures, all the theories that we pump into their head. By the way, one of the products of innovation now is that some of us that are professors will soon expire because because we know that there is a professor called Professor Google that knows everything.
Everything.
And today, AI is even adding to that.
Yeah.
If I give students assignments in my university now, and we've taught them to do that. As I give assignments, they use their smartphones,
their devices,
and go to any of the AI tools or any of and immediately ask, and they get the answer. So, but going beyond that, we have to ensure that these students learn these things even before they leave the university. That is why in many of the universities, including my university, in the last 2 years, we've established an innovation hub, and every student, it's not just entrepreneurship, but learning about innovation. How do you create innovation ecosystem? In fact, we challenge them that every student or teams of students should have their startups in the innovation hub. So while they are doing their lectures, doing all their work, doing their projects, some of the things they are learning can now be used to develop startups. And it's yielding a lot of fruits, I must tell you.
That caught my curiosity, because prior to these developments, the question that some of us have continued to ask, especially those of us who've been fortunate to visit countries like Japan, South Korea, even China, where at age 3, 4, you have kids being taught robotics, electronics. You know, I tell people I had the fortune, my secondary school back in the day, if you wanted to be a science student, you had to choose from the 5 arms of science. You had science electronic, you had science electrical, science woodwork, science metalwork, and pure science. And that informed the lives of many of my peers at that time. But sadly, over the years, like you rightly pointed out, our educational system tilted more to retentive kind of teaching rather than practical skills acquisition. So now, with these hubs, innovation hubs that are springing up within higher institutions, how are they able to continuously keep this young generation of entrepreneurs to be motivated? Because the system itself seems to have a way of demotivating most zealous would-be entrepreneurs. Sure. So beyond them acquiring the skills, what other innovations, what other things are these institutions bringing to the table? Because in the private sector, you have grants, you have scholarships. We've seen hackathons where these young innovators are propelled by the fact that after days, months of developing apps and softwares, they get the chance of getting somebody to invest in fully developing those apps and softwares. So what's the game plan here?
Yes, again, if we take it back to what the question you asked earlier, what the government is doing. Government is actually playing a role, and I must commend the present administration for that. And the reason is, why I'm saying this is that, yes, you are right. You start these things, and then these young ones learn these things. One thing is to learn the skill. Another thing is to be able to practice it.
Exactly.
Now, the role of government that is providing the environment is there. And I'll tell you a number of government agencies from I mentioned the Vice President's office. There are also some arms of government, some of the ministries, departments and agencies such as NIDA, the National Information Technology Development Agency, and a number of other agencies, Raw Material Council, the number of these agencies, NASENI, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure. They have also put things in place. When I say things, I mean you need startup capital.
Exactly.
You need even working capital.
Yes.
There are a number of initiatives that are now being driven by these government agencies that you can actually compete, pitch your idea, and you can win. And I tell you, because government is driving this, the private sector are also keen in. Okay? Most of the banks now have hackathons. Yeah. One of my daughters, incidentally, she was doing youth service, and she won 800,000 naira by pitching doing a pitching exercise while she was in camp.
Wow.
I can't remember the bank. Let me not market the bank, so otherwise they will pay you.
But congratulations on that.
She competed
wow.
and won. And it didn't just happen. It was because the university where she studied, this issue of innovation was prime, and we were encouraging her. In fact, mommy bought a sewing machine for her. She was doing accounting.
Wow.
Okay, and I'm sure there are many other examples. And this girl now, based on what she was taught in the university, she was learning her accounting. She did very well, but she also had another skill. And that earned her this 800,000. And she's driving that business. When that money came, I said, I'll move to Lagos to join you so I can manage this your money. She said, no, it's a business. And, but what I'm trying to say is that this can be replicated, and is being replicated in thousands of young people. In my university, for example, we don't just teach these new things only to our undergraduates. We're even going lower. Where we do coding, for example, for kids.
Interesting.
During long vacation. And I have one little example. A kid in primary school, he's now the one teaching some undergraduates.
Wow.
Because of what she learned long vacation last year. The parents told me now she's the one teaching them in their school about coding. You can imagine if that little girl from primary school now knows coding. And you made mention of Japan. That's how it is. They play with toys, they play with technology tools. So by the time they get into the university, they already know all these things, and then they begin to practice. So that we begin to get away from what we used to like. Those of us, myself, I'm one of those who graduated. I had a first class in agric engineering, but I must confess, beyond all the things I knew in my head, the skills were not there. But now, the way the world is going, we had missed out. When I say we, I mean Africa, Nigeria. We missed out in the third industrial revolution, when manufacturing, China, everywhere, manufacturing is going on. People are establishing industries. We missed out on that. We have only a few industries in Nigeria. Today, the world is going innovation, skills, developing tools, apps, all kinds of things. Remember, it's not only in ICT. These things are just tools, but they are all used to have applications in agriculture, in health, in aviation, all over. So you can see young people who ordinarily wouldn't want to go into agriculture because they say it's a dirty thing.
Exactly.
Now you see young Nigerians. If you Google now about agri-tech, you will see a number of young startups by Nigerians. They are into different sections of the value chain for
agricultural value
if
chain.
they are not able to go to the farm to dig, they can provide information, they can provide service, they can provide drones to farmers to be able to improve their productivity. These are things that tech can do. These are things that skills can do. And these young people using technology can get into all these and then provide services. If you Google today, you will see over 1,000 agri-tech startups. And you mentioned, I think I saw in your introduction, you mentioned some of them in the fintech sector.
Yes.
Just like you have fintech, you have agri-tech, you have those in, today we
Even
are
medical tech.
medical, yes. We are running, currently in my university, we are running a series of training on AI in health. How do medical doctors, nurses, everybody in the health sector, how do they use AI to improve on their productivity? And you begin to see it happen. So the world is changing and we cannot be left behind in the fourth industrial revolution. And that is why we say we must, as a country, do things differently. And it's not only in tech. I mean, the application is not, sometimes people think it's only in engineering. I have a friend who is a judge. Sometimes when I visit him, they say he's in his chambers, and I enter his chambers, he's maybe sleeping, and I say, my Lord, what are you doing? He said, well, look, you see, before I have to read all these
books.
But now, this judgment I have on Friday, I just came with my app. Bam, bam, bam. I saw all the cases I want to refer to all over the world on this particular matter in a matter of 30 minutes. I had, he had all of them because he has an app that helps him now to look at judgments, and then what the law says, what the Constitution says, and so on. Before, he would have spent nights and nights burning the proverbial midnight oil, trying to remember, all the arguments from the lawyers. But now, with an app, the AI app can even help him look at this, what this lawyer is saying, what this lawyer is saying, what does the law say, what are the historical antecedents, and then gives him a summary. Then, of course, he will still have to use his natural intelligence. Remember, the other one is artificial. How is the judge able to do this? He had to take, and because he was my friend at some years back, I was telling him about AI and tech, and he had to do online training. So skills is something that everybody, not just students, not just engineers, everybody in the economy needs to improve himself on all these skills so that you can take advantage of what is available. Now, where does government come in? I tell you, these things require a lot of infrastructure. You have to have robust internet facility.
Exactly.
Not what we are doing now, that when you are trying to get information, the system is rolling and rolling and rolling because bandwidths are slow. Maybe those who are providing the internet service providers, maybe they don't have power, this happens and so on. So we need to also improve on infrastructure so that those who are learning these skills, who want to practice, the laptop I use myself as an old professor is just one old laptop. But the one some of my children use, they tell me, in fact, the last one I bought for them, I say, I don't have this kind of money. They say, look, Daddy, for me to do the kind of work I do, I need high resolution, graphics. And, you are in this area, so you know what I'm talking about. So we need this infrastructure. Today, you can't get a good laptop with less than 1 million. True. How many people have that?
True. And
then the cost of data, the cost of everything we use in tech. So it's a major challenge that I believe that government is working on. That is also why in that sector you also have a number of what you call venture capital. We talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you may have some ideas, you want to develop the app, you want to develop this, before you even get to the market, or before you even get to the MVP, the minimum viable product. Remember, we are not just talking about us, we are talking about products. In the innovation hub we have in the university, we've set targets for the managers of the hub.
Wow.
That every year you must give us a certain number of startups. And each of those startups must have a minimum number of products in the market. We're not just talking about products people talk about. No. Products that are in the market making money. In other words, it has to be a product that people will pay you to buy. Okay. So whether it is a physical product, virtual product, whatever it is, people, we need to encourage and work on our kids to have this, so that at the end of the day, if you look at all these sectors, look at banking, look at hospitals, look at all these sectors, I tell you, most of the technology products used in all these sectors, including you. If I do a census now in this your studio, all the tech products that are here, what percentage are done in Nigeria? That's where we're heading to. But of course, the entry point, the low-hanging fruit is the apps. But beyond that, we also go to the hardware side of things, where this mic, all these little things, devices we're using, should be made in Nigeria by Nigerians. Young people setting up industries. In fact, even if they can't set up industries, they can also do contract manufacturing. In other words, those who are already in the field, you come up with a product, you look for where you can manufacture, you pay, they manufacture it and brand it for you. Okay, of course, in the interim, people can still jet out and do that. But in the long run, we must get to a point where we must have the engineering infrastructure within the Nigerian economy, so that if this beautiful pen you are holding now, you conceptualize a different one that is innovative, maybe you want to put AI or camera in it so that you can record people, which is really very useful. It makes innovation. That's part of innovation. Recently, we caught a lecturer in my university trying to extort money from a student. And the student applied innovation by recording him without his knowing. And so when we accosted him, he said, no. And we played it back. And he broke down and started asking for forgiveness. He said, well, the law is the law. You have to go. So what innovation does in an economy, you cannot imagine. So what we are talking about is making sure that these things are available within educational institutions, so that people can practice as they're learning, but also in the wider society. Because the idea of an innovation hub actually is more like an incubation hub. So if you have 10, 20, 30 startups within the hub, one day they have to graduate. They have to actually leave that incubation hub and then join the wider economy, where they can now compete. So that at the end of the day, if University A has 10, 20 startups, University B has 10, 20 startups, we are talking of universities, we have polytechnics, we have colleges of education, down to secondary schools and technical schools. So if we begin to have these startups, as these students are graduating, they are graduating with their startups, also graduating from the incubation hub to the wider economy, and they run their business. Whether they now get
So
jobs,
instead of graduating graduates that will go out looking for jobs, you are graduating graduates who already have work and can employ
they
other
already
people.
know, because for them to be able to have a successful startup while they are studying, they have to have a team. So they even have to employ people. So by the time they are graduating, they already have their
employers
business.
of labor.
Now, I also tell them, even if you want to work for somebody like me, I've been working for people all through my life. What it then means is that as you are entering that organization, whether it is government or private, you are going there as a skilled entrepreneur, not as a civil servant, in quote. What that means is that when you enter there and you are working in a ministry or you are working in a company or an organization, You're actually driving things there as if that company belongs to you, which is different from what we are doing today. That's the innovation that we are talking about in the future of work. So that people, if you are going to take a paid employment, you are always thinking about what those skills have acquired. How do I use it to improve productivity of that organization? Not to come to work, oh, it's time to go. Bell has, everybody go home. Tomorrow you come back. I introduced something recently in my university. At the time of this, when this issue of transportation costs and so on, we said, okay, 2 days in the week you can work from home. It's an innovation, but when I started implementing it, sometimes I now hear people say, no, today is my off day. I said, no, it's not your off day. It is your work from home
day.
So innovation is about making sure that even our mindset and our culture will be different. Otherwise, what we are having today or before now is that people just go to work. What they know is at the end of the month, the salary comes. Do people really ask where this money comes from? You have to make the money. And that is part of the skills that students have to learn. And it's being driven in, when we started, National Universities Commission actually started driving universities to have entrepreneurship centers. But I think the implementation went a little bit wrong, because now you have people having PhD entrepreneurship. People now think it's another opportunity to acquire a degree. No. Entrepreneurship training is for you to change your mindset to become an entrepreneur. So whether you are a civil servant by the time you graduate and you work for people, or you are in an industry, you are doing that work as an entrepreneur. And there is no successful entrepreneur that doesn't have skills. You must have skills. That thing you are doing, that work you are doing needs some skills. And you must have those skills, whether they are soft skills or hard skills. And what we are talking about now is that we need to retool our educational curriculum. And I'm happy the federal...
I was going to ask that, because we're at a time where brain drain seems to be on a high, and particularly within the younger generation. Everybody's thinking of Jackpot. Everybody is looking for greener pasture. How doesn't that, in a way, it looks as if it's a spiral effect? Why innovative and incubation hubs like yours would encourage young would-be entrepreneurs to see value in the system, but because of these other systemic challenges, power, financing, younger entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs would rather go to an ecosystem that facilitates their ambition to become entrepreneurs, to push their products into the tech space. So how, for you, how does the government and institutions like yours manage this very intricate balance?
Yes, it's a very complicated thing, but I have a simple solution to this. And what I tell people is, I like the Indian model. People want to go, let them go. Okay? I even encourage my students, especially the postgraduate students, to leave if they so wish. Wow. You know why? My philosophy is, as they are leaving, bring in more. We have Nigerians who have
they create space for...
Yes, we have too many people on the streets. Let's bring all those people. Let's keep... You know, that's the Indian model. At some point, when I was doing my postgraduate studies in Canada, out of every postgraduate student we had in my school, 3 or 4 are Indians. Wow. And they were all flooding in. Today, you see that 3/4 of them are back to India, physically or virtually. A number of them, many of them are still outside. They are taking over almost every corporate organization in the developed world. But many of them have also gone back to India. That's why you have the kind of thing you have in Bangalore and so on. So for us as Nigerians, we can even see that as what we are giving to the world. That is skilled, high-level manpower. Let's keep producing them. I'm not one of those who argue that there are too many universities. No.
So you agree with the current approach of this administration to
Yes.
have more universities?
Yes, if you take it per capita, we are still not there. That is, looking at our population vis-a-vis the number of people having access to university education. But that education must be good, must be excellent, so that those who are leaving will go with very good skills and good, so they can drive whatever system they find themselves. Now, having said that, it's also not good for us as a country. And so what I'm advising to government is that we should also look deep and see why people are leaving. It's also not a very good thing for everybody. It's been a very big challenge for me in the university because we use lecturers from the diaspora to teach. And we actually, the concept of the university, the philosophy is to train Africans to the highest level within Africa. Unfortunately, just like you said, we want these students from all over Africa to come to Abuja. They come, they get trained to level of PhD, and we want them to return to their countries to contribute to national development. Unfortunately, 95% of them
Go the other way.
the next thing they tell you, they are now in one university in the UK, one university in they are researchers, they are lecturers, they are researchers in companies all over the world, which to me is a plus for us. But on the other hand, we are losing as Nigeria, as Africans, because these brains are people who could have been contributing to our economy. So, but the other part of it is how do we turn this brain drain to brain gain? And what we do in my university is that we still harvest them, we use them for our research, for our teaching, for mentoring our students. And thank God for today. When COVID came, we were one of the first universities that switched to online teaching, even before the regulator said, people can do virtual teaching. Because most of our lecturers, most of our students, we are not Nigerians. And so as soon as we were able to get them back to their countries, we immediately had to switch to. At that time, Zoom hadn't even come out. We were only using Skype, but eventually Zoom.
Yeah.
So technology is something that you need to, it's dynamic. You have to move. So coming back to students, government needs to address the issue why people are leaving. One of the greatest headache I have as a vice chancellor is power. I'm leaving the university around 7 p.m. and the generator hasn't come on. Why should I be worrying about the generator when there is a national grid that is cheaper and I'll pay as soon as the bill comes? I don't want to talk about public universities because I hear some of them are owing
Heavily.
these schools,
Yeah.
hundreds, 200 million. So this issue of power. Other utilities. Today in the university I'm battling with water. We are supposed to be connected to the municipal water supply. I have 5 boreholes on campus. And because it's dry season, the water table has gone down. Only 1 or 2 are yielding water. I'm battling with security. So these are some of the things that make it difficult for young Nigerians to want to stay. But the good news is that the world of work is changing. You can work from anywhere now. I have a son, for example. I like using personal examples. I have a son who was in Europe, did masters, had a job. What brought him back was that the company said, okay, you can work remotely. So I said, okay, come and do youth service. He finished youth service. I said, my friend, go back.
You're not
now.
going back?
He said, no, Daddy, even that online worker, I found something to be doing. I was worrying my head looking for a job for him. But he found a job by himself and he's doing very well. And why? Because of skills and tech. When he went to Europe, when I sent him to study as an undergraduate student, I had idea of what I wanted him to do. 6 months later, he said, no, Daddy, I'm changing. And when I studied being a professor too, I looked at the course he wanted to do, and I saw it's something about skills. And I said, go ahead. You have your money, whatever you want to. What I know, what my own is after 4 years, my contract with you would have ended in training you. And so he has these skills, and that is what he's practicing. And I'm saying, look, I want you to go. So by the time you go, I'm sure that you will now take care of your younger ones. He said, no, that he doesn't want to leave. So even in that, what I'm trying to say is that even in that, everybody wants to leave. There are still some Nigerians that are here,
who still
young
find
Nigerians,
home
yeah, that see
viable.
things, that they see things. I have a young Nigerian also who is in the tech sector. And what he talks about, blockchain, all these things, it amazes me. Crypto and so on.
Yeah.
And I know he has the money to travel. He's not traveling. He's somewhere in the East. He's not doing Yahoo Yahoo. He's doing tech. So what I'm trying to say is that government needs to do a lot in terms of making sure we have all the infrastructure. We have today traveling is a problem. So we need to resolve all these problems. And when I say government, I mean both federal and state governments and even the local
governments.
So that Nigerians, because even though many Nigerians are leaving, there are still greater Nigerians that don't even have that opportunity. We are talking of people who have access to, they want to go abroad. There are still millions, hundreds of millions of Nigerians who don't even have that opportunity of even knowing what to do. So those ones, we still need to create a good environment so that they learn these skills. When they have these innovation and tech skills, they can practice from Nigeria and practice whatever they have learned, first of all, for the Nigerian economy, and then
gradually begin to export it to other parts of the world.
People have developed, we all know the story, but it's good to re-emphasize, people in this city, Abuja, and in Lagos have developed apps. And you know, there is also espionage and all this in all this. You can think of developing a tech product to challenge the big names. And what do? They come, they call you and say, look, we don't want this competition, name your price. And they can buy that thing you have developed, inject it into their own, and you go home with your money and continue. So there are so many areas that young people, but these young people need these skills. And that is where the educational system, like I said, the Federal Ministry of Education is doing excellently well. Apart from the MDAs I mentioned, I forgot to mention the Technical Education Board, that is Nigerian Board for Technology, Technical Education, MBTE. If you look through what they are doing now, they are driving a lot of programs and initiatives in the area of skills. You remember, the polytechnics were established for some reason.
Yes.
Unfortunately, what happens to Nigeria has happened to them in the past. Those in polytechnics now want to have degrees.
Degrees, exactly. They want to have
in engineering, we have what we call the engineering family: engineer, technologist, technician, artisan. Everybody. And if you are working in an oil company, that you are an artisan, you may even be earning almost as good as the engineer. So everybody should have a role. And the kind of skills that are required at every level, it's important that people have those skills. You don't go as an artisan, you want to get the skill of an engineer. So these things are graded and people should have these skills. And then in practice, they should now begin to practice using these skills and innovations. And I think what is happening today is a wave. And I'm happy that Nigerians are running with it. But we need all the support we can get from the government. If all the infrastructure, if all the things we need, engineering infrastructure, civil infrastructure, and so on are there, I bet you in this city alone, in Abuja alone, you can have over 5,000 innovation hubs. And you can see what that can do to the economy. You won't be talking about people graduating and not finding work because the hubs are there. They are producing things. It's not just about apps, but products. And then gradually you begin to see that this excessive importation of everything, why do people import?
Gradually decline.
I visited a Dangote refinery, excellent engineering wonder. You can call it one of the engineering wonders of the world. if you visit Dangote refinery in Igbese. But I asked a question. What percentage of what we have there
Was produced from
produced
Nigeria.
Nigeria? Both the hardware, those machines and all the things you see there, and the
Technical know-how.
technical know-how. I saw Indians, but my happiness is that, you know, when we visited, I visited under the auspices of Academy of Engineering. We'll always ask them, okay, all the young men and women they've recruited that are working, we started asking who is from Unimed, who is from ABU, and we saw that they're all schooled in Nigeria. Young, vibrant Nigerians. But the story is that they had to send them to India. After they graduated, after they got them employed, they had to send them to India for the skills side of things before they are now able to run
So
that refinery.
we are still lacking
We are still lacking in skills.
in skills.
So all educational institutions must do something. If you can't have the facility for skills within your institution, you can look out and collaborate with private sector organizations so that while you are training students, and like I said before, all those things we teach, they're all in internet. So you just guide students, but let them learn more of skills so that all those knowledge that they're acquiring, they can now get to the side of skills to practicalize those things so that you teach students about refrigeration and air conditioning. They should be able to design and build an air conditioner. Look at all the products of air conditioning in Nigeria. Which one is a Nigerian brand? Maybe one or two. But what is complicated about air conditioning? And you can give this example on and on in all sectors of the economy. Look at our health sector. Today, I'm happy that today we have quite a number of hospitals around that can do heart surgery, that can do even brain surgery, that can do kidney transplant. But again, this border on skills. You go to all those equipment they use. Where are they from? They're from Germany, they're from China. But there are components we can start with to make in these hubs and supply to the economy, whether it is health, whether it's agri, whether it's... So we really need to drive, and the government, of course, has a lot of role, like we already said, but also private sector. And I'm glad private sector also doing. I was once president of Nigeria Academy of Engineering. And one of the things we did was to institute a National Engineering Innovation Award. Actually, this 2025 cycle is on now. And what it is young Nigerians are encouraged to apply. And I remember that the last time we gave the award, the first prize got 10 million.
Wow.
To now move their idea from what it is to a product in the market. And I remember when we gave those awards in Lagos 2 years ago or so, or last year, I can't remember exactly. We even had a secondary school, I think either Queen's School or so. Young kids, young girls, it's a female, I think it's a female school. They came with a tabletop dam for producing electricity. And they generated electricity that we saw.
Wow.
So imagine if that is scaled up. So there are many things tech can do. So organizations like that, Academy of Engineering, Academy of Science, they are promoting, they have prizes, they have innovation awards, different organizations, private, and I mentioned some of the banks. So everybody, not just government, private sector, everybody should be involved in encouraging these young Nigerians. So when they acquire these skills, they come up with products. There's something called the value of debt in innovation work. Out of 100 ideas that come up, maybe only 10 we see to the other side of being in the market. There is always a value where they fall. If you are not able to scale that value, you enter. That's what happens to prototypes, to ideas. So we need to breed that so that as many ideas and research results that come out can move from ideas to startups and then to... That is the concept of the Silicon Valley. Actually, I remember once a Minister of Science and Technology wanted to create a Silicon Valley in Shedder. You know about Shedder Science and Technology Complex. I don't know what has happened to that project. But if that project succeeded, you would have seen thousands of small-scale startups around Shedder So all these people we are producing, we find work. We find where to do work. So we need to create, then the financial institutions have to be there to be able to
see
give
viable investments
and invest in them.
Yeah.
The development banks can give loans at good rates, even the commercial banks. Another area that I want to encourage us to promote is the area of venture capital. In most of the developed economies, you find that there are people who, they are in business, so it's not about social service. They are in business, a venture capital company sits around, looks around, goes to R&D institutions, universities, research institutes. Oh, you've come up with a way of storing tomato to make sure tomato can last. Instead of 1 month, it can last, longer. That's a tech. That's a technology thing that can yield money. They invest in it, and that business grows. And suddenly you begin to see that when you go to Orange Market in, I think it's Maraba. Or Zuba Market, you will not see that heap, or the one in Day. You won't see that heap of oranges and tomatoes that are dumped because they can't sell them and they've all deteriorated.
Yes.
So because the technology is not there. So if people come up with those ideas, they are able to find venture capital companies that can support them so that that product gets into the market. And you have a company, a new startup is born, and is driven by a graduate or even an undergraduate or a postgraduate student who eventually becomes the chairman of that company. So there are many organizations such as Tony Elumelu Foundation. They run things like, it's more like a venture capital companies. People compete, win grants. So we need to have more and more of such organizations. So that they can support innovation work going on all around. So that our kids, all the young ones, they're all full of talents, they are bubbling with energy, and all they need is to have a good environment where they can practice, where they can learn and practice and make money and become millionaires. Incidentally, I come from Anambra State.
That's the drive. Well, Prof, it's been an awesome, as I said, I was looking forward to this conversation, and you've blown my mind. In fact, my major joy is that, especially when you were talking about coding, I was happy because I have a 10 going to 11-year-old who currently has about 26 certificates from coding.
Excellent.
And her mind is full of all kinds of ideas. She's motivated about making money. I can't remember if at her age I thought about money the way she thinks about money. And I agree with you. There must be deliberacy in terms of investing in these young minds to create the kind of future that we all dream for them. So, Prof, thank you so much for making our time to be on the show. We truly appreciate you. We believe that those that matter, both in terms of policy, especially at governmental level, who must understand that they must invest deliberately in the areas of infrastructure to enable these innovative ideas to come to light. Thank you so much, Professor.
My pleasure, John.
Well, I did tell you it was going to be an awesome conversation, even though we all came with the expectation of hearing about Rivers State. Well, today we are talking innovation. And you never know. There might just be somebody out there with the innovative solution to what's happening in Rivers State.
Exactly.
You never know.
It's all about innovation. if we have good innovation in managing ourselves, in politics, we shouldn't be at this level of suspending a governor.
So it's all part of what we talk about right here on Korero. Of course, I tell you, the show is about empowering you with ideas and solutions to be able to change your situation. Well, trust us, as always, to keep our ears to the ground and our searchlight beamed on developments as they evolve. And we'll do our bit to bring them to you as much as we can right here on the show. I am Nkamian John, the controversial, also known as the beloved. Till we come your way with another incisive edition of the show. It's bye for now.